Here we go. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, John. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the January 8th River Falls City Council meeting. First thing we'll do is say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Christy, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Bierstead,
Here.
Harrow,
Here.
Downing,
Here.
Morset,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Odine,
Here.
Plunkett.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have approval of the minutes from the May 25th meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, first and second, any questions on the minutes? Christy, first and second on the minutes from the May 25th.
Yes, I have a first by Morset, a second by Downing. We'll start the vote with Alderperson Plunkett.
Aye.
Odine,
Aye.
Harrow,
Aye.
Miller, Miller, go to
There you go. Try again. Ms. Miller, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I don't. I just lost connectivity. What was it?
Approval of the minutes from the May 25th meeting.
Yay.
Morset.
Aye.
Downing,
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now next we'll move to approval of the bills with Mr. Morissette.
Mayor and council, I make a motion, we approve the bills in the amount of $1,245,375.18, subject to the comptroller.
Second.
First and a second on the bills. Any questions? Christy, a first and a second on the bills?
First by Morset, a second by Bierstead. We'll start the vote with Alderperson Odine.
Aye.
Downing,
Aye.
Morset,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Harrow,
Aye.
Bierstead,
Aye.
Plunkett.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Okay, next we'll move on to public comments. John, is there anybody at City Hall?
Yes, there is.
Okay,
And she's coming up to the podium now.
okay. She can state her name for us and
There we go. Go ahead.
I first want to know, this has to do with the ordinance. Do you want me to come up now or later when that's open?
which ordinance? For the special use permit?
Repeal and replace.
You can come up, we'll have a public hearing for that if you want to talk then.
Okay.
Okay, just be a minute or two. Anybody else there, John?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on then. We have a presentation from Accurate Appraisal on a reevaluation, and a Chris Playman and a Marcia Dolly should be online. Do we have them available?
I am just bringing them in now, and they should be on. Which of the two, Chris or Marcia, is doing the presentation?
I'll be giving the presentation.
All right. Just a second, Chris. Let me
Okay.
make you a presenter. Chris. Yes. And there you go. Okay.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So just to start off, I'm going to start with a little bit of assessment history. So River Falls is contracted with a blended service plan. That means we do a revaluation about every 6 years, and then a maintenance years between those revaluations. It looks like the last revaluation was in 2015. So since 2016 to 2020, and then again in 2022, we'll be performing that maintenance. And during that time, we'll be checking on permits, new construction, demolition, splits, combinations, and sales. We can only change values in a maintenance year if one of these things happens. So during the market revaluation, you can see there was one performed in 2006, 2015, and then now this year in 2021. Every property in the municipality is going to be revalued to what's considered market value. You can kind of see here in this graph, this 100% in the center here represents when assessed values, the values that we put on property, are in line with what the market and what the state is telling us the value should be at, right? So you can see the revaluation in 2006 brought everything really close to 100%. And then the maintenance years, you can see how it deviates from that 100%. This is where the assessed values are actually lower than state values. And then we did a revaluation in 2015, and now values are going higher than what market value is at. So now we need to make sure when we do this revaluation in 2021 this year, this yellow dot's going to come up here and get us back to 100%. The open book this year will be, there's going to be 2 sessions in August. Monday the 16th from 12 to 7, and Tuesday the 17th from 9 to 2. And then the board of review is set for September, Thursday 23rd, and that's 4 to 6. So just a couple of important terms to kind of cover. It's important that we go over what compliance is. So every municipality in Wisconsin is required by law to be within 10% of what's considered equalized value. Once out of compliance, a revaluation is needed within 5 years. You can see that technically the last 3 years, so starting in 18 to 2020, there's been 3 years out of compliance. And if we had not done a revaluation this year, you'd be 4 years out of compliance and needing a revaluation for sure next year. That's why we're doing it now. Equalized value, that's set by the Department of Revenue. That's the value of all property for the community, and that's based on market value of valid sales on the open market. And we'll cover that in a little bit. But you can see how the ratio is created. It's our assessed value divided by the equalized base value, and that gets us the ratio. Currently, it's around 77%, residential 75%, and commercial is 80%. So before we really talk about the market revaluation, it's important to know what market value is. So it's determined by sales of property on the open market between a willing seller and a willing buyer, free of undue pressure. So it can't be just, you know, the person down the street and you want to buy their property and you make a deal off the market. Those sales are not put into what we're doing or confirming for the revaluation. This market value is set by this, it's not set by the state and it's not set by the assessor. It's based on only natural occurrences in the market. So by periodically assessing property to market value, River Falls remains in compliance with state regulations. So you can see the revaluation here in 2015, that's that yellow dot. Since then, you can see a large increase in sales volume in the actual sales, the total sale at the end of the property. So what is a market revaluation? The market revaluation means that all property within River Falls will be reviewed and revalued to market value. You guys don't collect more taxes just because a market revaluation is performed, and a periodic revaluation ensures all property is assessed to market value. Market revaluations are recommended by the Department of Revenue to be performed about every 5 years. So the real reason behind actually doing a revaluation is to make sure that all market sectors are fair and equitable. So things like neighborhoods, style of homes, commercial properties, vacant land, waterfront, they all appreciate and depreciate at different rates. And that causes natural market inequity. You could see that, remember on the first slide where all the maintenance years were happening when it wasn't close to 100%, that's what happens, right? That's when people aren't paying their fair share of tax anymore. So a periodic revaluation ensures each of these sectors is revalued, and it creates fairness and equity among all the market sectors. So this year, we've made a huge change and big strides in our communication to the community. We created an education plan, which included Facebook posts, frequently asked question handouts, newsletters, council meetings, all that good stuff. You can kind of see little examples here. This is a frequently asked question sheet we did. There's also a Facebook post and then a video in the newsletter that went out in March. So we're going out and making sure that everyone has a good understanding that this is happening before they get their notice in the mail. We don't want them to get their notice and have it be the first time they find out about the revaluation. We're also doing notice inserts. So every single notice that goes out is going to have an understanding your assessment sheet, which is printed front and back on a separate color sheet of paper that kind of explains the whole process of what to expect, right? What are the next steps? There's also QR codes and links to videos so people can watch and have a good understanding of how the revaluation works. To go along with everything, just so you guys know what's happening with our technology. So our customer service is tracking all the correspondence with the community. So every time someone calls or emails us, we're keeping track of it. So we can tell you from month to month or every quarter how many people are calling in. All of our customer service agents are assessor certified, and they can answer property owners' questions super fast. Also, all of our assessors use computers in the field. So they're not out there with notebooks and tape measures and stuff like that. They're doing everything digitally in the field. So they're assessing values on site. And then also all of our assessments software is cloud-based. So every time we take a new picture or do anything like that, the property record card gets updated immediately on our website. Does anybody have any questions?
John, can you unshare, or can he unshare his screen so I can see any of the council members?
Trying to figure this out. I apologize. I've never
Nope,
used this before.
You're fine. There you go. Perfect.
And then if you have video, you could turn on your video too. It'd be nice to see you.
There we go. Hey guys.
Okay,
There we are. Excellent.
perfect. Thanks, Chris. Okay,
Yeah.
Questions for Chris? Yep, go ahead, Ms. Miller.
Hi, Chris. Could you please email that PowerPoint just so I can look it over again sometime if I have questions from constituents? That was very helpful, and I would
Yes,
like to
for
refer
sure.
to it.
I'll send it over. Do you want me to send it to everybody? I'm assuming all of your email addresses are online. I'll do that. I'll just send out one mass email with that in it.
Perfect. Okay, anybody else have any questions for Chris? Doesn't look like it.
Sounds good.
Hey,
I did
Chris.
my job then.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate you guys being here.
All right. We appreciate being here. All right. Take care. Have a
Okay.
good night.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, next we have a little presentation, Music in the Park from the representatives from the Music in the Park group. They'll have a little presentation for us. I'm not sure who they have that's going to be giving it.
Yep. I'm bringing them in now. It's Stu and Tom.
Okay.
So Stu Janis and Tom Bentz. And then
Okay.
You folks are in right now. If you have cameras, you can bring them on. And then I think Stu is going to be the presenter.
Okay.
There they are.
Okay, and let's see. Oh, okay. Sorry, I have to do something here before it will let me share. Problem is, I'm not sure what. Oh, screen recording. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. I am also new to WebEx.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, Tom.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm going to do some talking, and Stu's going to put up a presentation, and then we'll both answer questions.
Okay.
So,
sorry, Tom. It's telling me that WebEx has to quit before it will let me share. So I'll have to log back in, I think.
I'll go ahead and start, and then when Stu comes back in, you can see the graphics. So thank you for your time,
Okay.
everyone. So I'll just start. Music in the Park has been a fixture in downtown River Falls for over 25 years and produced by the River Falls Community Art Space, CAB for short. And the series entertains crowds of people in Veterans Park during the summer months. Musicians, which are from the local areas of professionals that are paid by CAB. And the series serves the River Falls community, and typical concerts usually have an attendance of 100 or more people. The Music in the Park stage is surrounded by a bench that also serves as the structure and storage space for the canopy that provides cover for the performers on the stage. In addition to the Music in the Park concerts, the stage and canopy are used for performances by our high school, middle school, Brickhouse Music. Sometimes we'll do our recitals down there in the summer, Art on the Kinney, and several other groups for pottery and other things too. So it is a community space, of course. The bench itself serves, of course, as a place anyone who wants to sit there, hang out, to watch the river, just take a load off. And indirectly, an important benefit of Music in the Park comes from people who come to downtown for concerts and patronize local businesses as part of their visit. The bench and canopy were originally installed and paid for by CAB at no cost to the city. After many years of service, the bench has begun to fall into disrepair and needs replacing. We've obtained 2 estimates for the repair work, and we're planning to go with a vendor who's given us a lower estimate of $74.50, and work has already begun. And as this has been asked, we are using a Trex type material so that it's going to last much longer. Also, as everyone probably knows, it's about the same price as treated lumber at this point. We believe the bench is an asset to the community, and of course it is in a city park, but at this point the city hasn't had to contribute to any of its upkeep. Thus, we're asking the city to help cover all or part of the cost of the rebuild. We typically solicit donations at performances to help cover cost of the series, but we don't bring in anywhere near the amount that we're just need to reach our goal of $7,500. We hope you guys will agree that the canopy bench is an asset to the community and a fixture in the city park. And its upkeep is, of course, done solely as a volunteer effort through CAB. We thank you for your time and consideration on this renovation project. And Stu, do you have anything to jump in on?
Yeah, the slide that I'm showing right now shows kind of where we are in the financial arena. So the CAB organization, we had about $1,200 in funds that had been allocated for something else that we ended up not using, so we can contribute that. We had a good year in soliciting sponsors. The Music in the Park series is funded by sponsors, businesses that sponsor us, and we expect the sponsorship income to exceed the costs of the concerts in the neighborhood of $1,000 to $1,500. Taking a ballpark estimate of what we might get from donations at concert, another $1,000 to $1,500, and CAB has the potential of doing a fundraiser as well. Now, Tom, you had spoken to the park board, and Cindy had said something about an America in Bloom donation. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, and Sean can probably jump in because he was at the meeting as well. But that was something that was explained to us, that they were looking for projects to help, and it didn't necessarily have to be something of a specific nature, but we're just uncertain as to what our next step, if this is something that we could potentially qualify for, and would be something of interest for them. So,
Hey, Tom and Stu. Hey, this is Dan Tolan.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, why can you guys set up some time? We'll set up a time. You guys come in and we can talk about this and figure something out. Shouldn't be no problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
So,
can I
yeah.
make just a quick, and I know we're in public comments, so we can't really
Right.
engage too
Right.
much in this.
Right.
My comment not looking for a reaction, but my comment would be, have you approached the bid board? And also, as a member of the Rotary Club in town, we take care of cleanup of the park in the spring and the fall. Plus, we've kind of spearheaded the revitalization of that park. Have you thought about also approaching the Rotary Club in town to see if they might be willing to participate in that as well? Those would be two avenues I'd ask you to think about. And like I said, I don't want to start a
No.
conversation here because it's not the right spot, but
Right.
two quick comments.
Cool.
Get a hold of me and we can get these other groups involved. We'll get this figured out.
That sounds
Yeah.
great.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
What was there anything else you guys wanted to tell us about? It looks like you're going to 2 nights this year.
We've been 2 nights for a long time, but
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Yeah, you've got a lot on your plate. Don't worry about it. We switched from Friday and Saturday nights to Thursday night and
that's what it
Saturday
is.
afternoon because, which I'm very happy about, that we've got more music and performances going on throughout the city in the summer, and we tried to be cognizant of that so that people can go to see more events. So we're trying something new this year, and hopefully it works out to do a Thursday night and Saturday afternoon.
Good. I know we changed something. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can we unshare this and then we'll see if any of the council members have any questions? Yep. Go ahead, Mr. Plunkett.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place to ask, but since these guys are our main user of the park and have had concerts already, have you seen any impact from the to-go alcohol sales that are now allowed in Wisconsin? And are people using that in the park? Is that something that you're seeing? And if so, has that been a positive or negative for that downtown area?
Well, to answer your question, Ben, for years we've kind of been informed that we really can't have alcoholic beverages in the park. I know there's some new rules, so we've only had one kickoff concert, so I'm not exactly sure yet. For years, as food trucks have become more prominent and whatnot, it's my wish that we could have more of those kinds of people involved in these summer concert series, and that's a whole other subject. But
Right.
I think that would be something that would help it be even more community minded. It's an interesting. I would say this would be a good question to discuss at the end of the season. So.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else have anything? No? Okay. Well, Stu and Tom, I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you.
All right, thanks,
Yeah.
Dan.
Thanks, guys. Okay. Next, we'll move on. We'll close the council hearing and open up a public hearing on ordinance 221-04, repealing and replacing section 17.104.040 of the Municipal Code relating to special use permits. Is there anybody in the audience? I know Patricia, you're there. Is there anybody else there? John, or just Patricia?
It is just Patricia.
Okay. Patricia, if you're.
See if I can get the unmute. There she is.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Patricia LaRue. I live at 49 Marcella Court, and I'm a member of the River Falls Plan Commission. The matter of administrating special use permits, repealing and replacing our current ordinance came before the commission on May 4th, 2021. I disagreed with replacing our current ordinance and putting the decision-making of granting or denying special use applications with the Plan Commission. I stated these decisions were best left with the City Council. I was wrong. Having done much research on the law, I now know that 27 Wisconsin Act 67 was passed by the legislature with the express intent to lessen the discretion and control of local governments when considering special use applications. I learned that as long as the applicant agrees to abide by the requirements and conditions, there is little discretion allowed on the part of the local government. And the kicker is the law itself further restrains what the local government can put as requirements and conditions into our ordinance. Depending on how our zoning ordinance is drafted, it is now much easier because of this law for an applicant to be guaranteed the issuance of a special use permit regardless of how the community feels. An incomplete, vague, or nebulous ordinance hampers our decision-making. Loss of property value, need for increased law enforcement, noise, aesthetics, traffic, and hours of operation, just to name a few, must all be measurable. I now know that the staff is trying to do is to provide the city with as much of a handle as possible to maintain what little control the statute allows. That with the Plan Commission in control, the process would go smoother. I respectfully request that the council consider a moratorium on accepting any new special use applications to allow time to research what other communities have enacted, what fits River Falls and what doesn't, then repeal, replace, and tighten our ordinance to serve us well down the road and to allow us greater discretion in issuing or denying special use permits. Thank you.
Thank you. John, nobody else there? Nobody on the phone or anything, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing and reopen the council hearing, and I'll take a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve ordinance, repeal and replace ordinance 2021-04, section 17-104-040 of the municipal code related to special use permits.
Second.
Second. Okay, we have first and second. Discussion or comments? Mr. Downing?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and Council, I have taken the time to see how this stops unnecessary lawsuits against our city, and I believe we can all agree that this is a very good thing. Also, this gets us into immediate compliance with state law, and I appreciate the work of the Plan Commission in the particular sense combing through the process and the criticism that comes with trying to figure out how we can best do this. I admire the legal work done by the city staff, and I see the wisdom in keeping the process in-house to reduce unnecessary lawsuits. With that said, however, there is a very big problem that is left. If we move forward, like the resolution currently states, to having a one-step process before the zoning board, the public will be losing their ability to have a public comment at a council meeting and participate in the process with public comment like they would normally do at a council meeting. So to make up for that significant loss of public engagement, we need to take some basic action. To clarify the problem I'm describing, we would be losing public engagement if we don't include the public with their own informational meeting for a special use permit. That means currently this resolution, the way it is written now, would be a loss of community engagement and participation, and we would not know what the community thinks as a whole like we normally would have with a council meeting that would have a public comment. Removing that step would hurt our public engagement, hurt our public's ability to participate and understand the process should they choose to. So what I'm asking you to value today is keeping an informational meeting for a special use permit, which would be conducted by a couple of our city staff. The information meeting would allow staff to explain what the process is for a special use permit, what to expect next, and then the developer can explain why they are requesting the permit specifically for. After that, there would be a public comment. This would be very simple and straight to the point. I believe it would meet the needs of what Patricia had just asked about and other members of our city. To clarify how it would work for council members, it would be similar to the open book process, but simply informational in that sense before the Board of Review. Where the Board of Review is the quasi-judicial hearing, the Plan Commission in its own similar way would be having its judicial hearing, the quasi-judicial one. So it would actually complete the processes much like we do with other processes that we use commonly. So this would be replacing a public comments we would otherwise lose and specifically designed where the whole community can comment on a specific action that is before them by educating them on the process and participate in learning so they can understand what is happening and why it is happening. Other cities do this, and it would meet a goal for responsible community engagement in our comprehensive plan. This is remarkably important because this would fulfill part of our work we have for later this year for community engagement in the city's comprehensive plan, specifically regarding the process of how special use permits work and create consistency with the process, having an informational meeting before the quasi-judicial hearing happens, creating transparency, explaining how the process works, what to expect, education on how it works, and allow for a public comment at the end. Doing this would keep our public comments and community engagement in good, healthy condition, while educating the community in the process itself, treating our community with the care and respect it deserves, giving it transparency of how the process works, instead of losing the ability to be heard and leaving the public in the dark and frustrated. We only do special use permits about once a year, much like the Board of Review, and having an informational meeting for special use permits would be the correct and simple action to take. I'm looking at voting in favor of this today, as long as we can send this back to the Plan Commission to include an informational meeting on a special use permit like I described. I would like to see this action, and could we take a quick straw poll on just having a very simple informational meeting? And
let's no, we will not do that. We can discuss this if you want.
Would you be okay with, yeah, let's discuss it. I agree.
That's fine. Ms. O'Dean, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. And this is, if you're looking at the ordinance 2021-04 under procedure, which is C2, the Plan Commission shall hold at least one public hearing thereon. And I've got a question for staff and for council. There is nothing in this ordinance, this new ordinance, that would prevent us from doing what Sean is asking, is there?
I don't believe so. Amy or Scott?
I don't think the ordinance would prevent it. I think we have to be thoughtful about the quasi-judicial nature of the Plan Commission's decision. So it's probably more about thinking we can't spoil the quasi-judicial meeting. Attorney Gerard might have something, maybe more eloquently state that, but I don't think anything prevents us from having a meeting with the community development director, hosting it, saying, if you're interested in learning about the special use permit process, you can come in and talk to us about it. Or I doubt that would spoil the quasi-judicial nature, but I think we would have to be thoughtful about it not being collecting evidence or data or those kind of things. So the public comment portion of it would have to be thoughtful also.
Right.
And then we'd have to look at the public meetings laws too. So there's a few things. I don't think the ordinance itself would prohibit us from having some kind of informational meeting.
Right, and it could be hosted officially by someone or some part of the city other than the Plan Commission. There's nothing in this that would prevent that from happening. Is that correct?
Not that I can recall, unless Ms. Peterson or Attorney Gerhardt can recall something.
Chime in if you'd like. Nothing in the ordinance prevents staff from holding a meeting with the public to discuss a proposed special use permit.
Attorney Gerhardt, do you have, can you come up in your volume? I think you're a little low on the volume, or closer to your.
Does that help?
That's a little bit better. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Nothing in the ordinance prevents staff from holding a meeting with the public. The concern, as City Administrator Simpson noted, is if evidence is gathered at that meeting, we need to make sure, it doesn't spoil the quasi-judicial hearing. So anything discussed at those staff meetings essentially should not be in the record. And the Planning Commission can only make decisions based on what's in the record, which is what is stated and entered into the record at the public hearing. So the concern, of course, is if the Planning Commission members attend a community hearing outside the public hearing, a developer or applicant could make an argument that they're bringing in something outside of the record, into that process. So it can happen, you just have to be careful about it.
Okay, so it could happen. Well, I'll just throw this out. My impulse here is to vote on the ordinance as it stands, and you know, if there's a policy or amendment to the ordinance that we want to do, I would be interested in seeing something something in writing rather than amending it.
Hey, Amy or Scott, I have a quick question first. So by doing it the way we're doing it, giving this over to the planning commission, the people, they still have their public hearing. They're not losing any public hearing, right?
Correct.
Have we, I guess my question would be, the special use permits we've had, or the meetings we've had about special permits, where people have come in to gotten special permits, have we ever had complaints from citizens that they don't know what it is? They didn't have a chance to express their feelings about it? Have we ever had any complaints about that you know of?
Not that I can recall.
I would probably lean on yes, we probably had at least one in my time here.
Okay.
It would be hard for me to inventory all our special uses and think that we never had somebody who didn't think they understood the process or weren't informed.
Okay. Okay.
So I can't give you a specific example, Mayor, but I would say anecdotally, it's likely that there are people out there who have felt that the process kind of passed them by, or that they didn't get their chance, but I couldn't speak to an example of that.
Okay. Okay, anybody else have it? Yep, Mr. Downing.
I think maybe a healthy way of working with this would be to actually send it to the plan commission and let them tool over what I just talked about, and keeping it simple and to those perimeters that we just discussed. Odine pointed out a really good point about how the quasi, and Mr. Simpson, about how the quasi judicial part of it works, where you can't contaminate. So I think it'd be pretty simple and easy to do, but it does need to be tooled over by city staff and the plan commission before coming back to the council. That makes a lot of sense to me.
If I may suggest too, I mean, the meeting is certainly a formal opportunity, or in this case, maybe it's considered an informal opportunity for public engagement. There are other tools too in the public engagement realm of, you know, these, like we just talked about with assessment, frequently asked question sheets or short videos on what the special use permit is. So there are other tools that the city and or its plan commission could use to try to address this what's going to happen next question for people, you know, how, because again, if it seems like this is abrupt and a little complicated and taking away our local control, that's because it is. That was the intent. So cities are kind of left to try to work their way through it, and we have to determine the level of effort we want to put in to try to kind of specify or work around things that the statute is kind of placed in our way, being respectful of the fact that we are a unit of the state, and so when they pass something that takes away home rule power, we have to acknowledge that, whether we like it or not.
Okay, anybody else have anything on this one? Yep, go ahead, Mr. Morissette.
Yeah, so I think Administrator Simpson just kind of touched on it. I first of all, I agree with Miss Odine that I don't want to explore anything today and try to create something out of whole cloth. That's just not going to work. I would not be supportive of that. You know, the public comment provision is in there. The mailing to people 300 feet or less is part of the ordinance. I don't know that I don't know, and this is maybe a question for Attorney Gerhardt. I don't even know how much latitude we have to amend this. I think, as Administrator Simpson pointed out, the state sort of comes down and says, this shall be the law, and now we might be able to have a little bit of latitude, but I'm unclear whether we want to or not, if we even have room to move around and do this. I'm a little confused about why we would create another public hearing or another meeting if there already is a provision for the public hearing or notification. And we've got concern about, making sure we don't bring in information that's not collected at the public hearing. So I don't want to get in our own way here either, but I don't know, Mr. Simpson or Mr. Gerhardt, would you comment quickly on what, if any, latitude we might have if we wanted to explore it?
Certainly, some communities do have these types of staff meetings with the public before a public hearing. The statutes don't prohibit that. However, where we're at tonight, if the council wanted to consider a change to this proposed ordinance, it would need to go back to the Plan Commission because it would deviate too much from what's already been recommended and had a first reading on. That answers.
So if we decided we wanted to explore the possibility of having a different meeting with staff and any citizens that didn't understand it, would we have to redo this whole resolution? Or are we okay
No.
doing this resolution and coming back with something else for the meeting?
Correct. You can adopt this resolution today if council desires, and then you could come back at a later date and certainly amend it again.
Or could we create something just, okay, that sounds good. Okay. So go ahead, Mr. Plunkett.
Where would we stand on the action of a moratorium on special use permits? Would that be something that is allowed under that state law, or something that we could do at this time, or is that not an option?
I suspect with the city has some limited ability to do moratoriums. Attorney Gerhardt, do you think that there's any special prohibition in this area against moratoriums?
I'm not aware of any specific statutory prohibition. However, property owners, have rights in their property to use their property for how it's allowed under the zoning code. Wisconsin law does allow for development moratoria, which limits subdivisions and flats, and there's specific procedures to impose a development moratoria. So my preliminary assessment is the city likely cannot just prohibit someone from, applying for a special use permit when state law essentially says that use is allowed if you agree to meet these conditions.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Go ahead, Mr. Downing.
So Mr. Mayor, can we just agree to send this, this is the part I'm talking about, back to the Plan Commission and have them?
Yeah, well, I think Scott and Amy can come up with something for the Planning Commission to discuss and see what they think.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Yep.
And I had a couple other questions I wanted to ask regarding this.
Go ahead.
Okay. For Mr. Simpson, our city administrator, does the hearing process include that special use permits will not cause excessive traffic impacts, that it will not cause noise, dust, or odor problems, will not overburden water and sewer services, will not interfere with the development of adjoining properties, or will not devalue nearby properties? And I was hoping we could include property signage. I know when you do rezoning, we put a property sign out. That would actually help create awareness for those people in that immediate area. I think that's something very simple we could all agree to. And it talks about 300 feet for the for the public who's immediately in that special use permit area. I know there's some cities that do 600 feet. I was wondering if maybe we could find a compromise between other cities and do something like 500 feet. And because it's not really that much to begin with when you consider odors and noise and related damages or whatnot. So those are my questions.
So I think I heard 3 questions and I'll try to reply as I can, but Ms. Peterson might be better able to answer the noise, odor, pollution one, but I'll give it a try from a somewhat layperson's perspective. So I believe that on a scale of 1 to 10, of 1 being we just went with the basic state language and we're not really doing much beyond that, and 10 being we've come up with some great scheme to maintain exact local control over a number of those things that you've talked about. This is probably in that 6 or 7 range. And in particular, the 300-foot notice is not something required by state law. And so that we've added that in, or carried it, I guess, forward from our current ordinance. There is language about conditions the plan commission can impose and how and why they would do so. We probably would have to go through the list that you came up with, Mr. Downing, and determine whether or not the state statute allows us the freedom to do that or not in the context of what the statute has. So, you know, we do have things about traffic circulation, hours of operation, planting, screening, fencing, lighting. So a number of those things you've talked about I think would be fair game for the plan commission.
Do you feel that a sign of good size like we do for rezoning would be acceptable and would help? Because I think it would. How do you feel about that?
I think that's a policy decision for the council or the plan commission. Both the 300-foot notification and a physical sign on the property is a tool to gain attention and to try to notify the public about what's going on. But the flip side of that is some folks would argue that it's a community-wide decision, and those tools primarily focus on notification of a narrow location, which may give a larger voice to a smaller portion of the population. So that when I say it's a policy decision, I think it's because if you widen up substantially the notification area, it becomes a poll of the neighbors, in my professional opinion. And if you put a sign out there, again, it's mostly people that are going to see the sign that get the notification. Whereas the public hearing notices and other attempts through social media or whatever we may do generally have a broader approach. But you could also argue that there's a domino effect where if you have a small sign on the property, then maybe one person notices it and they post it on their social media. And that in turn gets posted on other social medias within the community, and therefore you get a wider. So I do think it's a policy decision. I wouldn't say that it will. I don't know that there's any white papers out there on how effective signs are for getting public engagement.
Mr. Simpson, when you use them in rezoning, in that process, what is the main motivation and why the city does it for that reason?
Well, I believe that was some council direction, and I think that's a practice, not a policy. So Ms. Peterson, I don't know if you can correct me. I'm not sure if we have an ordinance requirement for a certain size sign or anything.
It is in the ordinance that we signed for rezoning.
And is that a recent revision, or am I just not remembering?
I don't believe that is a recent revision.
Okay. And so I would guess, again, council member, it was a policy decision by the council that they felt it was important for some kind of physical notification on the property, so that if you're in and around that property, you would have the ability to understand that it's up for rezoning. And then you don't have to rely on the newspaper or other places to find out.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Well, I'm in favor of having signage up because it helps increase overall awareness of what's going into that zone. When people make public comments, they state where they live first, so people understand that, sometimes you get people who get the attention from the city because they're directly in that 300 to 600 foot radius. And there's other people in that area might have an interest depending on the impact of it, which is why the signage would be valuable to have. It wouldn't cost much and it would actually meet a very good need for the city. So I'm in favor of having some signage.
So I think Attorney Gerhard, would you agree that changing the distance of notification or adding a requirement for signage would likely not require a new first reading? That's something that I think the council could do within the noticed ordinance. Of course, the council would need to agree on what that language amendment is, and so that you're all clear on what you're amending. And that'd be subject to a motion to amend and second and vote to do so.
I would agree with that. It's not imposing any substantial burdens on property owners and is really just giving additional notice. So it could be adopted by a motion to amend the existing motion to approve.
It also can be sent, that item could also be sent back to the Plan Commission for their discussion about notification distances and signage. So it's I think entirely up to the council whether you want to just pass what's in front of you or make some of those amendments that have been discussed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to send it to the Plan Commission as well for the review. If that's okay with you? Can't hear you.
No, I agree, Sean. We discussed so many different things. We have an amendment with the first and second on it. Everything else we can put together in something for the Plan Commission, let them hash it over, and then bring that back to you guys. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms.
Mr. Plunkett?
McCann,
McCann,
sorry, Mayor, can we clarify whether we have anything on the floor? I'm not sure we have.
we got a first and a second on this amendment.
No, to
No,
pass the
Mr. Mayor.
ordinance as written.
Yeah,
It was-
we've only got a motion on the table, and Parliamentarian Odine can help me here. We've got a motion and a second on the table, and we had
Yep.
discussion. We've got no amendments on the table,
Right.
and we've got no other things to address other than the original motion for approval.
Right. Mr. Plunkett, you had your hand up. So is everybody okay with doing the original, what we have, and then we'll send everything else to Planning Commission and hash it over there? Go ahead, Mr. Downing.
I had a couple additional concerns regarding impact of a neighborhood. And I intended when I said that those concerns I listed would also be sent to the Plan Commission to see language if needed. So thanks again.
Yep. Okay, anybody else? So we got a first and a second on the original ordinance repealing and replacing section 17-104-040 of the municipal code relating to special use permits. Christie.
Yes, I have a first by Morissette, a second by Bierstead to approve the ordinance. Start the vote with Alderperson Miller.
Aye.
Plunkett.
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Morissette.
Aye.
Stoughning.
Aye.
Odine.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christie. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. First thing is resolution rescinding the emergency declaration for the city of River Falls. The other one is a resolution awarding the bid for the city's janitorial services to FBG Service Corporation. Anybody want to pull anything? Otherwise, I'll take a motion on. Yep,
Mr.
go
Mayor,
ahead.
full consent agenda items 5 and 6.
Go ahead then.
Resolution rescinding emergency declaration for the city of River Falls. I have a couple questions here. Let's see here. Regarding emergency declarations, would this allow for people who are struggling with their energy bill to still apply for grant money through the federal government? Or in the respect how it's written, or do they lose their ability to appeal for local help?
Councilmember Downey, I'm not aware of any qualification that's received from a locally declared emergency. Typically, you need at least something declared by the governor or a federally declared emergency in order to qualify for those assistance programs. So to the limits of my knowledge, the locally declared emergency being taken off is not going to change people's qualifications for those programs if they're available currently.
Mr. Simpson, are those third parties then who help people? Not necessarily.
There are third-party nonprofit groups that provide some assistance, but primarily those assistances are through either utility bill funded programs or through federal or state appropriations.
Okay, so this won't impact people who are still requesting aid then, is what you're telling me. And they'll be able to do it through those different groups.
Correct. I'm not aware that that's the case.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of consent agenda item number 5.
Second. Any first and second on number 5? Any other questions on this? Christie, we have first and second on agenda item or consent agenda number 5.
I had a first by Downing, a second by Bierstead. Start the vote with Alderperson Morset.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Plunkett.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
O'Dean.
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
You.
Go ahead, Mr. Downing, with number 6.
Resolution awarding bid for the city's janitorial services for FBG Service Corporation. I have a couple questions about this. Was there a competitive bid contract that was put out? Because I'm not seeing who participated in that contract. So if so, who participated and were the bids close?
I think there's 2 in the agenda, right?
There's a memo outlining the process.
Yeah, it's missing people who participated other than FBG from what I thought I read.
Councilmember,
Hang on, let me look here.
Councilmember Downing and others. So we had about 10 interested parties. We had 3 that attended the mandatory walkthrough, and then there was 2 bids, and the bids were not close. So FBG was substantially
and Pro
lower.
Cleaners for You was the other one.
And not necessarily related to that question, but I did want to thank many city staff who also do clean. We do a lot of janitorial and cleaning services with city staff, including in your own workplace, in your own workspace. So we have cleaning supplies located throughout all of our buildings, and individual staff members, including those that are in offices, et cetera, are expected to do some of the cleaning. So this is kind of the base level cleaning. And you can see there's some variation in different buildings based on how big it is and how often it's cleaned, and frankly, how much public is in there and how much is done by other city staff already. So
I understand that it's hard to find reliable local work. Were there other local bidders involved in this process, like Also Clean or other ones, or did they just not have big enough staff to accommodate a bid for this?
I don't know if Assistant City Administrator Stroud knows if Also Clean was specifically involved or not. I do not.
And we could certainly pull in our Public Works Director, Mike Stifter, if additional is needed, but my understanding is that we certainly made sure that reference company was aware of the opportunity, and they did not attend the mandatory pre-bid tour and opted out of the opportunity. their reasons why, I think you'd have to ask them. I can't speak to that.
Okay. Well, thank you for fielding my questions. Mr. Mayor, I move approval for resolution awarding the bid for city's janitorial services to FBG Service Corporation.
Second.
Any other questions or comments on this? Chris, we have first and a second on consent agenda 6.
A first by Downing, a second by Miller. It will start the vote with Alderperson Carroll.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Bierstead,
Aye.
Morissette,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Downing,
Aye.
Odine.
Aye.
You. Next one is a resolution approving developers agreement with Lot 1 Wasson Properties LLC. I'll take a motion on that. From anyone?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval for a resolution approving developers agreement with Lot 1 Wasson Properties LLC.
Second.
Okay, we got first and a second. Any questions on this? Comments? Okay, Christie, we have first and a second on resolution approving developers agreement with Lot 1 Wasson Properties LLC.
I have a first by Downing, a second by Miller. It will start the vote with Alderperson Bierstead.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Plunkett,
Aye.
Odine,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Carroll,
Aye.
Morissette.
Aye.
You.
Thank you. Next, move on to the administrator's report. Scott, if you have anything for us, anybody have
I've
any
got
questions for Scott?
Slightly different setup today, so it takes me a little longer to get to the mute and unmute button.
Oh, that's fine.
I just draw people's attention to some of the updates that are in the administrator's report this time regarding library hours and others. Staff is primarily back in the office in most of our locations. We've made some changes operationally and brought work teams back together. We had kind of ABC crews and pods of employees. So we're still being thoughtful about that. We didn't really flip the switch, so to speak. We've kind of moved back in some ways. We are asking, we're kind of following a number of other larger companies, retailers, et cetera. And we have signage posted that if you are not fully through your full vaccination, that we are requesting you to wear masks in our facilities. And specifically for employees that are unvaccinated, we are asking them to still mask and maintain social distancing, especially in their interactions with fellow employees or customers. So we're kind of working our way back in, but it certainly feels a little more normal than it has in a long time. We're having in-person meetings, and most of you are aware that this is the last scheduled entirely virtual council meeting for the reasons of COVID prevention. So we may still use this tool going forward if the council chooses to do so, but we do plan to go back to more traditional in-person council meetings, and we're still working out the bugs on some of the live streaming and things that we'd like to maintain even once we're back in council chambers. I think the council understands we've had a delayed council chamber improvement project for some time, which we're going to need to do to get the quality of the video feed and audio to what people have expected with WebEx. So when we're all virtual, the quality is, I think, pretty been well received and very, you can make out what everybody's saying and you can see people and it works pretty well. Once we go back to in-person meetings, I think the the web cameras and things that we have in the council chambers are not quite as good as what even people have on their laptops or iPads. So we have to do some upgrades there to make sure that the public can still be engaged, even if they're not at the council chambers. For a short period of time, we will be limiting or maybe not having anybody join remotely, so to speak, because we're not sure we can maintain the quality that we expect. But we are still hopeful that that's even possible for the June 22nd meeting. So stay tuned on that. We're working through that. We have a new hire in IT that's got quite a bit of experience in that area, and we expect that we'll be able to do some of the work ourselves and maybe expedite that rather than waiting for a contractor. So I think there's a few other notes about forestry. We'll be doing some street work here already. I'm not sure if that's going to be delayed by the 90-degree weather here a few days or not, but they'll start doing some construction patch. We've seen patches throughout the town, and just understand that we're kind of ramped up now. So we've got full seasonal staffing in place, and a number of our contracts are let for services that we purchased on, park streets and otherwise. So there's going to be a lot of vehicles and equipment moving in and out and around town, fixing sidewalks, curbs and gutters and all that. So we, I guess, pardon our dust, so to speak, as we try to get some of those projects done. So any questions that I can answer? We also, I should mention that 2 days in a row here, we've made peak megawatt hours for the electric utility. So in part, I suspect due to the weather, obviously, but also just keep in mind that we are a rapidly growing community, and so there's more meters drawing electrons. So we've yesterday was the all-time peak record, and today beat that record. So I suspect be in the running for that tomorrow and the next day, depending on the low temperatures this evening. So happy to take any questions.
Mr. Simpson, I got a quick question. I noticed on the preliminary June 22nd council meeting preview, you've got the liquor license and beer renewal license hearings. Obviously, we had the bulk of them. Was it last weekend in May, or last meeting in May, or whenever we had? How many are we anticipating that didn't get into that group and that are going to be in this meeting? And maybe that's not a fair question for you. Maybe City Clerk White might be able to answer it. Or
it's a fair question for me, but one I don't have an answer for. So if you want an answer this evening, I'm not sure. Let's see who I've got on the participants.
No,
here.
that's fine. It's not earth shattering. It's a curiosity question more than anything else.
Clerk White is certainly available, unless she
can't be too many.
She might be texting me the message now too. So
I didn't mean to create a fire drill here.
No, that's all right.
Administrator Simpson, in case you didn't notice, John pulled her into the conversation.
I didn't notice, but she texted me 2 is the number.
2.
So,
all right. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Downing.
Mr. Simpson, would you or any other city staff know what third parties would be able to help people who are struggling with their energy bills and whatnot for the summer and post-COVID? If not, just get the information back to the council at some point, please.
I can do that. I would encourage any customer of the River Falls Municipal Utilities that is having difficulty or foresees having difficulty paying their bill to directly contact us, our customer service reps, our own community employees, and they have a bevy of resources and contacts to try to put people in place, and it can essentially become a one-stop shop for people. But there are a number of prescribed and informal programs to help people kind of get through any rough patches that they're having with utilities. So I will get you a list of resources, Mr. Downing, and but I would encourage customers to call and trust that we'll try to help you work through it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, move on to, I got a couple appointments I'd like to make.
Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Plunkett is
Oh, I'm sorry.
probably on your next screen over.
Oh, there he is. Yes, there he is. Sorry, Mr. Plunkett, go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to point out that the income guidelines for the Wisconsin Home Energy Assistance Program for a household size of one is about $2,500 a month. So at, somebody would have to be making in excess of $15 an hour to not qualify for those programs. So that that is something that's broadly available, and people should be contacting the utilities even if they're not aware that they do qualify for these assistance programs, but they are there, especially considering the housing costs in our community that can give people more money to spend here locally. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else before I go on? Okay. So just a couple appointments I'd like to make. I'd like to reappoint Patricia LaRue to the Park and Rec Advisory Board through May of 2024. And to the Utility Advisory Board, I'd like to reappoint Kellen Wells Mangold through May of 2024.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we accept your appointments.
Second.
Okay. First and second, Christie, on my appointments.
I have a first by Morissette, a second by Bierstead. We'll start the vote with Alderperson O'Dean.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Morissette.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Plunkett.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Christie, you have first and second to adjourn.
First by Bierstead, a second by Morissette. We'll start the vote with Alderperson Miller.
Aye.
Plunkett.
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Morissette.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
O'Dean. Carroll.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned. I'd like to thank everybody. Is there any of our presenters that are, if they're still listening, thanks for showing up and helping us through these different things. Everybody stay cool.
See most of you in a couple days.
See you Thursday.
Oh yeah, it's right, Thursday.